have a heart for transitional housing? Do you find yourself wondering what you can do to make a difference? Imagine being the catalyst that transforms the lives of individuals and families in your community. You can help a teenager aging out of foster care, giving them that stable housing environment that they need and access to educational and job training opportunities. You can also work with seniors in providing them a safe place to be and offering them the services that they need so that as they're dealing with various levels of memory loss and other elements, you can provide that to them. Or you can work with veterans, and you can work with that veteran who finds himself homeless, suffering from PTSD, and now he has the means to be able to deal with his trauma and find a space that he feels safe, an environment where he has a community and a people who care about the resources and the things that he can get for himself. You can be a part of that, and the sky is the limit to what you can provide. Your passion and your commitment can be the driving force behind establishing this type of transitional housing facility that can offer more than temporary shelter. It can offer a comprehensive support system for individuals that ranges from counseling, healthcare, job training, life skills, you name it, you get to create that. And how amazing is that? So simply by taking action, you can turn your compassion into a tangible change, offering hope to individuals who need it the most. So as we go through this episode, we're going to talk specifically about some practical steps that you can take to make your vision a reality. If you want to be a change agent, this is the episode that you're going to want to watch. And stay tuned till the very end so we can talk about some major ways that you can make an impact. You're going to be able to understand how to assess a situation, assessing the needs, and then building those relationships that can help you secure funding and other things that you need in order to create a substantial, sustainable, supportive program for that individual or that particular vulnerable population that you want to serve. So first, as you look at assessing the need, that's the first thing you need to do. And you have to marry not only the need that's going on in your community, but the things that you are passionate about. I've talked to hundreds of people who talk about they want to be in this space and they're coming from their heart and wanting to give back in a community that they are a part of. And sometimes that heart, you want to make sure your heart aligns with what the community needs. You don't want to get into a space where you are just focusing solely on just your heart into the situation, because your community might be saturated in providing support for a particular vulnerable population that you want to work with. But I will tell you, doesn't mean you can't work in it. You just need to understand what your environment calls for. So I tell people all the time to create or conduct some type of needs assessment. You need to know what your community needs as it relates to transitional housing. You can't just operate in a silo or in a bubble. You need to be involved in the community. And the best way to be involved in the community is to be involved with your local COC. You hear me talk about the continuum of care all the time, because the continuum of care is a group of volunteer individuals who come together to talk about how they can end homelessness in their community. So I encourage you to look up your county COC and find out which particular COC, what time they meet, because they typically meet once a month. Some of them meet every other month, but you want to get engaged and involved in the process. And it starts with knowing your community and knowing what's going on in your community. And the best way to do that is at the COC. I also like to encourage people to get involved with the service delivery committee, because every COC has individual committees. And depending on what you like, you can tap into any one of them. I think I've been on almost all of them. And The one associated with housing, the most is anything that actually delivers the services. So being involved and connected in that particular committee would serve you well, especially if you're wanting to provide a transitional housing facility in your community. So as you do that space and work in that space, you want to make sure that you know what those needs are. Because if you don't know, you don't really know what direction to hit in, or you don't know if what your heart loves doing is really needed in your community. Because as you get involved with your COC and start listening to what the needs are, you'll understand and develop that acumen in this space. I like to compare, like when you build business acumen for building a business, you need to build social service acumen so you understand the lingo that is used in this space and the type of things that they look like and the definitions of how HUD defines transitional housing or any other type of housing, the rapid rehousing dollars, like all that stuff you need to learn. And the best way to learn it is with your local COC. So I always say start there and conduct that needs assessment. Find out what that housing instability is in your community so that you can then tap in. Because what you might find out as you get into that space is you have a really big heart for aging out youth, but you got 10 other agencies there who are working in that same space. Now, it doesn't mean you can't serve in that space. You just have to rethink how you want to engage. So I say get in there, get your feet wet, and get involved with your COC so that you can begin to create a needs assessment for the community in which you live in. So as you're doing that, and that's why I love starting there first, you can then start building relationships, because those relationships with agencies and with other people who have a heart for this space that you're in too, now you can find out, now how can I really get involved? Because it's through those partnerships and those relationships you can find the gaps that are needed that you can then tap into. Perfect example I love talking about, because in our community, my heart goes out to reentry, because there's such a need for working with individuals who are coming out of incarceration, especially those who have to register. So as you're in that space and you see the need, you tap into that. So I have a heart for individuals who have to do that. So building those relationships, because that's how I actually started getting in. I actually got with an agency that I worked like hand in hand. He and I got close with the executive director. He and I, to this day are extremely good friends. And through that relationship, we were able to build those partnerships. And that's how I was really able to see the gifts that I could bring to him and meet some of his needs. And through that collaboration and working with agencies such as that, the sky is the limit, especially if they've got funding that they just got and now they need housing. Well, who better to partner with is someone that you're building a relationship with. They're going to come to you first. Now, I always tell people, when you go into these environments, don't go in here with this take mindset. Please don't do that. I've watched people who come into this space and they're passing out their cards. I got this. What is that? I'm only telling you this. I'm trying to teach you some acumen in this space. You want to come from a space of how can I help you? When you come from a place of how can I help you, now you've shifted the entire mindset of that relationship. You're coming from a space of giving. You're coming from a space of helping. You're not coming from a space of taking or all about you and what you want to create. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about what their needs are and the needs for their clients, because that is their priority. They want to make sure that someone's just not out there to just get for themselves. It's all about giving. It's all about giving back to those who are in need. So if you come from that space, start building those strong relationships, you can really make a big impact and find your niche. I also will say you are going to have to engage in the community in a variety of functions, whether it is attending the COC meetings, being that advocate for individuals. You will have to play that part in understanding and knowing the people who are talking in this space, because that's how you can be of service, is by building those relationships with individuals. And where you find the gaps, that's where you fill that gap. That's how you want to come into the community, even if it's just volunteering. As I said, the COC board or the COC community, it's all a volunteer board. Like, nobody gets paid to do that. But I will say this too, it's very political in the COC. So I would say keep your mind focused on how you can be of service, how you can meet a need. And sometimes, even through the politics of it, you just simply have to find the place where you can be of service and focus on that, is serving the clients, helping those who are unhoused and getting them into housing. Focus on that and nothing else, and you will be successful as you build those relationships. So as you build those relationships, then securing funding for the things that you can offer will sort of open up. You'll start seeing the individuals or the agencies who are getting the grants, who are getting the funding to do certain things. Then if you've got those skill sets that you can offer, you do that. Or if you're going to do a transitional housing facility and offer that, and they just got a grant for housing, great relationship. You now can secure funding through what they call an MOU, a memorandum of understanding. So by doing that, you can secure funding, you can build relationships for yourself as well. Now I tell people too, a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm going to go create my nonprofit. You really don't have to be a nonprofit. You truly could be your business, but serving a need. You are a social enterprise. So you can still do that and get into a contracting relationship versus an MOU, so that you still can contract for those services to those agencies as a for-profit company. And if you want to know more information about how you do those dynamics, feel free to reach out to me and go to bookwithtony.com so that I can share some more information with you as you're thinking about moving into this space. Now, as you look at the funding, because like I said, you can get grants or funding, contract funding, simply by getting involved in building a relationship with those agencies. So really hone in on how you can be of service. And if you are a for-profit, how can you then contract to then have funding? And that gives you credibility as well if there are funding opportunities available that you can tap into. I'll just say this, if you are a nonprofit, you can obviously get grants that you can qualify for, that you don't have to pay back. So there are some advantages to being a nonprofit, but it doesn't have to be the end all if you're not. So I would say reach out to me if you want some more information on how to move in that space, and I will help direct you into that. Now, the last couple of categories that I want to cover is talking specifically about how you would develop the facility. Now, I've got an entire course on how to build this out, but in a nutshell, you have to be able to create a plan for that housing so that it can serve you. Because if you do choose to create a transitional housing facility, there are critical steps to being successful in choosing the right property. And I'm more than happy to guide you through that if you're interested in the course that we offer, so that you can become, and like you literally can get everything you need to be able to create that facility. But clearly creating a plan, knowing who you're targeting, and then creating a plan that serves that is critical. You have to plan that and develop it so that you can be able to meet needs. And you're going to have to build relationships with individuals. If you're not specifically providing those specific skills, then who are you going to work with? Who are you going to partner with? And then making sure you understand the dynamics, because as you're looking at facilities, as I mentioned before, you can get into a space where there are certain zones or requirements, building codes that you will have to go through to be able to get this property qualified for that. Now, there are certain ways, depending on how you're structured, that you can sort of navigate that space, but you want to make sure that you do it well so that you are truly following whatever guidelines are laid out for that particular local municipality where that property is located. So being able to create a strong plan and developing it and for that facility is critical to your success. And then, of course, as I was talking about some of the supportive programs that you can offer, because you can't do everything. You find out the niche that you want to cater to. Like my specific niche is training, and I love teaching sustainable skills training, and that's where I lend most of my skill sets. But I truly am not an expert as it relates to trauma. I'm not, an expert as it relates to mental health. And so you want to bring in the right partners working with you that can provide those services depending on the population that you're working with. So you want to be very intentional as you develop that plan so that you can be able to successfully launch your facility that's going to meet those needs. And then, of course, creating a way in which you're monitoring and evaluating your program, because a lot, especially if you're working with agencies, they want to make sure that you have a solid program that you are developing and you can document that, because they're going to need that for their grants. If they've included you and they've got either a contract with you because you're a for-profit or an MOU with you because you're a nonprofit, these are the relationships. You'll need to have those benchmarkings and those ways in which you're monitoring your progress that they can then document when they are seeking additional funding or to just maintain the funding that they've already gotten. And last but not least, we want to talk about advocacy. And if you've not subscribed to my channel, please click subscribe and notification so that when I put out a new video, you're the first to be able to see it. Because we're going to be talking a lot about transitional housing, and I don't want you to miss a beat. But as we look at this last step, this is where you raise awareness about the space that you're in and being able to educate the community as it relates to your property. Especially if you have a transitional housing property in a particular area, you might have to educate the neighbors on what it is that you're doing. So making sure that you are building advocates and getting people working with you so that you can positively impact the community, that is going to be critical. And you want people to understand, especially the neighborhood you're moving into, what needs you're addressing. Now, I will say, as you're looking at that need that you're assessing, like if you are working with a population that, is a vulnerable population, but it's that one that people shun, like when you're dealing with people coming out of incarceration, like that's a reality. So being able to really make sure you've got a way in which you're keeping the neighborhood safe, that is what they care about more than anything else, is making sure the things you have in place are safe. So there's some things that you can do if that's the space you want to move into, just to make sure you're finding the right property that's going to serve that need, but definitely making sure that you are creating that awareness as you are building out your transitional housing facility, no matter where it's located. So these are the steps that you go through, and there's more, but this gives you a high level of some things that you need to consider as you talk about building out your transitional housing facility and making sure you have the right steps that's going to guide you down that path. So I look forward to seeing you help transition individuals into a space of sustainability, into a space where they are transitioning from where they were into something that is a little more stable. And I look forward to you being a part of this community that is about transforming lives, because transformed lives transform the world.